Okay, when you think of French food, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Seriously. Is it a guy in a striped shirt with a baguette, a little bit of brie? That whole cinematic image is super powerful. But today, we're going to figure out how much of that is real and how much is just a really, really well marketed myth. So let's slice into the truth.
I mean, that classic image is just everywhere, right? The charming little Parisian cafe, the striped shirt, the baguette tucked under the arm. It's such a strong stereotype. But is that the actual reality for the average person living in France? Well, that's exactly what we're here to find out.
First up, let's talk about breakfast. We're calling this one the croissant conspiracy because, well, that story we all have in our heads about the French morning routine, it might just be a complete buttery fabrication.
I mean, this is the dream, isn't it? Waking up in Paris, taking a little stroll to the corner boulangerie, and starting your day with a warm, flaky, absolutely decadent pastry. The myth makes it sound like this isn't a treat, but the standard everyday experience for pretty much everyone in France.
But here's the reality check. The fantasy is all about that daily decadence, the perfect croissant every single morning. The truth, though, it's so much simpler. The real, everyday French breakfast staple is the tartine, which is basically just a slice of baguette, sometimes even from the day before, with a little bit of butter and jam. And if you need a number to really drive this point home, get this. Only about 10% of French people eat a croissant for breakfast on any given day. 10%. That means a whopping 90% of the country is starting their day with something else entirely. That really puts that whole myth into perspective, doesn't it?
So, the typical French breakfast is actually pretty simple and functional. It's the tartine, a strong cafe au lait, and maybe a yogurt or a piece of fruit. And those beautiful flaky croissants, they're not an everyday thing. They're a special weekend treat. They're cherished because they aren't commonplace.
All right, let's move on from breakfast to the bigger picture, because the stereotypes get even more dramatic when we start talking about lunch and dinner. It's time to pull back the curtain and see what the French really eat. Ah, yes, escargots. The dish that has, for better or worse, defined French food for so many people. And let's be honest, it's probably scared a few people off too. The myth is that the French palate is just exclusively adventurous, that they're all regularly dining on things that, well, many of us would consider a little out there. The reality, though, is so much more grounded. French home cooking is rarely about some exotic adventure. It's all about comfort and quality. The real focus is on fresh, seasonal, and local ingredients. It's about making something that's both delicious and nourishing, not about trying to shock your palate. And this is what that actually looks like. A simple, perfect roast chicken on a Sunday is practically a national institution. You'll find things like simple vegetable gratins, hearty beef stews like pot au feu, and savory tarts like quiche Lorraine. Sure, snails and frog legs exist, but they are absolutely for special occasions, or they're regional delicacies, not the foundation of the national diet. Okay, for our last myth, we're shifting from the what they eat to the how they eat it. And we have to talk about France's most famous export, the baguette. There's this one rule of etiquette that causes so much anxiety for tourists, and it is time to clear this up once and for all. Have you heard this one? It's that kind of tip you get from a travel guide that just fills you with this low-level panic. The belief is that putting your bread on your plate is a major social sin, a huge faux pas that will immediately scream, "I am a clueless tourist." But here's the deal. The reality is way more nuanced. It's not some strict, unbreakable rule. It's more of a flexible custom. In a very traditional or super formal restaurant, yeah, you might see people place their bread on the tablecloth next to their plate. It's kind of a holdover from when plates were kept clear for a bunch of different courses. But it is not the major disaster people think it is. If you're in a casual bistro, a cafe, or especially at someone's home for dinner, it is perfectly normal and common to put your bread right on your plate. Really, context is everything. It's just not the unforgivable mistake we've been led to believe. So we've busted myths about breakfast, dinner, and even bread etiquette. What does it all add up to? If it's not all about croissants and snails, then what is the real secret ingredient to the world-famous French approach to food? This is it, right here. The real philosophy is so much deeper and more meaningful than the cliches. It's a mindset that's all about prioritizing high-quality ingredients, eating what's in season, and maybe most importantly, taking the time to truly savor the meal itself as a moment of pleasure and connection. So, the real rules of the French table are actually way simpler and I think more beautiful. Use good ingredients, eat what's fresh right now, make time for your meals, and enjoy them with other people. The whole idea is that the real magic is often in the simplest things, just prepared with care. That is the true essence of French cuisine. And all of this leaves us with one final question. After tearing down these French myths, it really makes you wonder what widely held belief about food in your own culture might be more fiction than fact. Something to chew on. Thanks for tuning in.